Today I'm talking to Ashley, and maybe you could introduce yourself.
Sure. I'm Ashley Obscura, and I am currently living in Montreal. I'm a poet and the founding and managing editor of Metatron Press. And I also do some work in education, teaching poetry workshops to high school students. I write for video games occasionally, experimental ones, and yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Thank you for introducing yourself. I wanted to start by asking you about, I heard you're writing a new book.
Yeah.
I heard this online.
Yeah, I feel like I'm starting to talk about it because it's starting to feel real, but I put Ambient Technology out, which was my second collection of poetry in 2018. Aw, did you have a copy of it right there? There it is.
So cute.
And then after I wrote that, I don't know, I didn't write for a really long time. I had a really weird experience of putting it out, and I really just feel like I needed to live my life for a bit and take a break from writing and reevaluate what I was trying to do with my writing. And then, so my next collection I'm currently calling Boca, which is mouth in Spanish. And it's about my complicated relationship to being biracial. My mother is Mexican, and I didn't grow up in Mexico, and I didn't grow up speaking Spanish. So it's this, I'm trying to dive deep into that topic and see what's in there. So that's currently where I'm going.
And it's poetry again?
Yeah, it's poetry. It's poetry. I'm surprised. I was I really I've always wanted to write more autofiction and creative nonfiction, but poetry to me feels like a really refreshing form to be working in, to kind of get away from the harshness of life. I think that poetry to me has been very, I don't know, it's soft and encouraging, and it's a really nice space to be in right now. But I didn't feel like that for the whole pandemic. I feel like I didn't write anything for the first 8 months, and yeah, so now I'm working. Sorry, what?
Do you think you didn't write because of having published your first book, or your first full-length book not that long before, or was it just because of the pandemic
I think it's various things. I feel like my poetry in the past seemed to come from this place of spontaneously reacting to the world around me. And I feel like there's been this sense of a lack of stimulation and spontaneity outside of digital, the digital world. So I think that's why I didn't write for a long time. And I think I wanted to know what I was doing or what I wanted to do before I started a new poetry book. I wanted to be more intentional with this one, and to go in with a specific purpose and go out with a specific purpose, as opposed to in the past, I feel like I just let the poems, I would just write and then I would find a way to put them together, and then, and then that would be the book. So yeah, intentionality.
Yeah. And because you worked on Ambient Technology for a really long time, how many years was that in the making?
I'd say 3 years. I was writing pieces. It was supposed to be an ecstatic love poem collection, and then I went through a really unexpected breakup, and then part of like my healing was trying to finish the book and to like yeah, to be vulnerable of what it feels like to lose someone you love so deeply, and then the process of like healing yourself and learning to like open your heart again to others. So yeah, that one, the process, that was very process based book. And then putting it together and editing it, I don't know, it felt, I'll always love that book because it's just, I think it encapsulates the like complexity of love and loss.
Yeah. I mean, obviously at the time you like didn't really, nobody wants to like have an unexpected breakup, but then I feel like it at least in the way that you were able to use that to like sort of deepen the content of what you wrote about, like it would have been completely different had that not happened, wouldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like anytime we go through something where there's like a loss of sorts, like even with COVID right now, you know, there is an opportunity through writing to find like the power in loss, and how it's hard, but that it can be like transformative as well. Or it can be transformed through art, like poetry. So yeah, I love going to like poetry specifically for this like transformative element of it. Like, you know, the situation is shit. How can I like use the magic of poetry to like make sense of it, or to like make it somewhat beautiful, or to talk about how ugly it is, you know?
Yeah. And you published Ambient Technology on Metatron, which I completely understand, I think, why you did that, because I think that you did it better than anyone else would have done. But I imagine that was like a difficult decision to come to.
Yeah, it was. I think that poets benefit a lot from having someone else champion their work. And I think that part of I think I've learned, you know, the hardness of, you know, it's technically self-publishing, but it's not, because it's done through a press that I started. Yeah, it's hard to like be the one to be selling your own poetry. Like, it's just something that I like, especially with Ambient Technology, I was like, this is really weird. At the time, I like really wasn't feeling like being a public person. I didn't want to like perform, you know, I didn't want to like perform that I had just written a book and that I wanted people to buy it and like read it. I just like wasn't in that space. So yeah, I feel like because of that, perhaps my book didn't get the readership I was hoping it would get. But then it was also like incredibly humbling too, to be like, you know, like lots of people don't read poetry. It's a super niche thing. It's like, you know, it's something yeah. And then I think through that I had to like, you know, address like why I write. Like, I don't write necessarily to be read, although it's amazing to be read and to like feel heard. But I write to like cultivate a relationship with myself, I think, first and foremost. So once I kind of learned that hard lesson, I feel like I just have zero expectations of my poetry. So anything that comes my way is like always a blessing. Like even like you wanting to talk to me about my work, it's like, yeah.
Well, the thing about the book is that like the book's here and it looks amazing, and like it is the thing that you wanted it to be, like when you were working on it, right? Like, and I feel like you don't know, like even if you're like, oh, in the initial publication, like I didn't like, I don't know, like pop off like I was hoping for or whatever, but like you don't know that won't happen in the future, like based on other things that you do, because you do so many things. I feel like
Yeah.
it's like you don't know when people are going to come to it, I think.
That's so true.
And
Yeah, and that's the beauty of, you know, of publications, is that even like the other books I published with Metatron, I'm like, it's so amazing to think that in 100 years, someone could pick up this book. It is a physical object. And yeah, and then to like think about the life of books in that way is so inspiring, because think about how many poets like we don't discover until they're long gone. And
Mhm.
I think the tradition of poetry is like people just leaving amazing observations of the world out there for like future generations to find themselves in and to discover.
Right. Imagine, and yeah, imagine if you were like the like coolest poet of like the 2100s. Like,
Is that Rupi Kaur though? Isn't Rupi Kaur the coolest poet?
no, I'm talking about like in like 100 years. Like I feel like now people like Ruby Kaur, but like by then probably forgotten. No offense. But it, I mean, it could be anyone, right? But it's weird to think that that could be, you know, like a lot, so many people that we like, no one cared about them when they were alive or when they were doing it. So
Yeah, for
I don't know.
sure.
Not that this, it's not really a goal, but it's a possibility. Do you like? Do you wish that you? Because I think that that is, it's so hard. Like it's really easy to, if you're publishing something by someone else, it's really easy to be like, this is great, like I want to tell everyone, I'm going to do as much as I can to like get people to be interested in it. Whereas to do that for yourself is like, just feels like unnatural, or like something that isn't like a, people don't really like that, right? Like they don't want to see
Well, I
maybe
think
a
people, I love to see people like super stoked on their stuff and like promoting it. And like, I live for that stuff. Like, I'm like so stoked when I see like my friends create something and like can truly like stand behind it and be super proud of it. But I think like generally I have like a bit of like social anxiety, and like I don't always have the capacity energetically to be like a public person. And yeah, so like the whole like releasing of poetry is like, I'm so excited to do it and I like love doing it, but I'm also like, there's a side of me that's like incredibly shy, you know, like lots of poets, you know, most of us are like shy. And um you know, I think that like the reason I started writing when I was a kid is because I was, you know, there was a part of me that was deeply shy, even though I am like quite outgoing and extroverted. But I would go to my poetry to like be honest with myself about things and like say things that I didn't necessarily think I could like say out loud. Like if I was like fighting with my parents, I would like write them like a letter, you know, to like process it. Um, yeah.
and you were like writing poetry when you were a kid?
Well, no, I wasn't like writing poetry when I was a kid, but like just like the act of writing in itself. But I think poetry came in high school when I discovered the poetry section at my high school's very small library. And I read, like I found E.E. Cummings, who was like probably my first love. I was like, oh, I remember, I just like, I'll never forget like when I read his poetry for the first time. And yeah, like how much it opened up in my brain. It was just like, oh, there's like this whole other world out there or in here, or like where, I don't know. How
Yeah.
about you? Who was you like the first poet like you ever fell in love with?
Frank O'Hara.
Nice.
Yeah, I didn't really like poetry. I didn't know that that it was, I just had only ever been presented with things that I thought were really, really boring, like about like
Yeah.
the like at school we would read poems about like the First World War, and it's like that just doesn't like really inspire like a teenager to
Totally. That's so true. You're like, you need to like, I don't know. I think the key to getting like teenagers interested in poetry is to show them like things that they can like deeply relate to.
yeah. So you're teaching teens about poetry, or like writing poetry, or
Yeah, I do. It's it's not super consistent, but like I am part of this network where every once in a while they reach out to me and they're like, hey, can you, do this workshop for like an hour and a half at this school in Montreal. And I used to go in person to do these courses or like these workshops, I guess. And now they've, I've done like a couple over online. But yeah, it's so cool I went to one. My favorite experience was going to this all girls school. And they were like already really into back to like Rupi Kaur, but like I was like, so do you guys know about poetry? And like, they all were like super excited about her work already. And I was like, this is really cool. Like, and so that was like a gateway for them to like be open to like the other work I was showing them. And then, and like, I kind of lead them through, I show them a bunch of writing and read work to them and talk about it. And then because I find teaching poetry incredibly hard. But I think it's because it's not necessarily about like the act of writing, but it's more for me about like getting into that space of like introspection and curiosity about your inner world. So it's like almost like more like a meditative thing. Like I try and like get them to close their eyes and like teach them about like, observing their thoughts and going deeper into things. So I think it can be kind of weird for some of them, but I think it feels very important to me to, for poetry, through teaching poetry, of like telling, young women and boys like how important it is to listen to yourself and to like learn how to listen to yourself.
Yeah. I wish that you would have come to my school when I was that would have been amazing. I feel like that could change, like for the right person, that could like change their life. Because the difficult thing is that you don't really know, like unless you have like an older sister or brother or someone who like can, or I don't know, or like a cool parent who can like present you with something. It's like
totally.
How are you gonna find out about that? Like you can
that's the thing. Yeah, and like for me, like there's no artists in my family. Like no one in my family was ever a writer. So I've really had to like sail out on my own and create like my own life with like very little like blueprint.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and like, and try and, having to interface with your family and, explain to them what you're doing and like reassure them that, you're not living a life that's based on principles of security, but you're living a life that's like based on the principles of like happiness and art.
Yeah. Wow. So you grew up in Saskatchewan and then you moved to Montreal like to go to college or something?
Yeah, I grew up in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. It's like a city of 300,000 people or so. And then when I turned 19, I came out to Montreal because I had some friends that lived out here. I had visited and loved the culture here. And then I got accepted into the creative writing program at Concordia. So I just like came out here and never turned back. I guess I've been here for like 15 years now.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Yeah. I lived in Montreal in like 2007, but were you there then?
Was I here? Maybe that was, oh man, I don't remember the past.
We didn't meet.
Like
we didn't. I don't know. We didn't know each other. But then I guess I did meet you in Montreal like about like 5 years later or something.
Yeah, we met like alt-lit movement brought us together IRL. And we met in Montreal.
Yeah. And I think I came to Montreal like to go to one of your readings because I lived in Toronto, so I like just took a bus, just like a casual 6-hour bus or whatever.
That's so cool. Yeah, I think that was the one we did yeah, with Steve Roggenbuck back
You're
in
like
the day.
yeah, let's not talk about that.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about that, but
I don't want to talk about any of those people who are, we don't
no, we don't have to. I was just, yeah.
no, I mean, I don't know. But you like started this thing where like you were like, we're gonna do readings and we're gonna like, that was like how it all began, right? It was just like with live events.
Yeah. Yeah, the
And
live events, just like putting together really yeah, like fun readings, taking it out of the context of like academia, and just like making it really real, and featuring like, you know, voices that to me were like the cutting edge. So I wanted to create space for those writers, and then, you know, and like I wasn't really aware of all this stuff when I was doing it originally, but like just creating a community around it, creating a network of support, and or like just activating that community, not about creating it, but just like, yeah, activating it. So yeah, that's where it started, with the live readings, and then a couple years later, it became about the publications.
yeah, I guess I'm, for anyone who doesn't have context, when I say like that's how it all started, I mean Metatron, which is the press that you've been running since like 2014, right? Something like that.
Yes, 2014.
Yeah. So in around 2012 or something, you started like hosting these, or like throwing these readings that were like parties, really, like in like cool places with like, I don't know, like I feel like the lighting was like, it just like wasn't like a reading, it was like
Yeah, it was something else.
it was like
I
you were
think I
going
was,
to a show or something. Like it seemed like there would be like a band playing, but it was just like people reading.
yeah,
And
that's the thing. Well, because like poetry was like really uncool at that time. Like honestly, like, I mean, at least from what I could tell, it was all about the music, like the music scene. And, you know, I was in the music scene, not as a musician, but as like a fan. And, you know, just seeing that type of energy that people brought to those shows and how many people came out. And I was just like, you know what, like, I know some poets and they're like rock stars. Like, let's do this. Like, let's prove to people like how rad poetry is.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then after like, but at that time it wasn't really like did you feel like you had a goal? Like did you think, oh, I'm probably gonna try and do some books? Or were you just like, this is fun, like
No, I like had no vision for that. It was just like, this is great. Like, let's do this. This feels good. And then the books were more like, after doing the readings for a while, you know, where there were some like specific people from within the Montreal scene that like had really over all these readings like proved to me like how incredible they were. And I was just like, so are you going to try and get published? Or like they had tried and there was like not many opportunities. There weren't many presses in Canada that were like focusing on this like new era of writers. And so I like applied for like this small little grant that was like distributed out of the like same office as like social welfare. They like run this program that like gives artists grants to like do little projects. And so applied for one of those and got it. And like that's how the 6 books came to be.
so you started off with
It's my ears.
the first 6 books were more like chapbook like style, weren't they? Like they weren't like perfect bound, they were just different looking.
Yeah, they didn't have spines. So yeah, they were chapbooks. And I honestly like never even like thought that I would continue doing it. But then there was like such a energy of like, you know, bookstores reaching out, wanting to have them in the store, places reaching out for interviews. Like there was just like a lot of like momentum behind it. And I was like, oh, like maybe I could like keep on doing this. And then at the time, my like partner convinced me to like just invest all the money that I'd made selling the books back into the project. And then I was able to like finance the next 2 rounds of books through those sales. But yeah, there was only like a couple hundred copies printed of the first books. And eventually, you know, because I was putting the money into like the new publications, I couldn't necessarily reprint because I didn't have access to a lot of money, and it just, that wasn't the reality. So yeah, that's kind of like how it started.
So it was just like you did the 6 books, like kind of just thinking you were doing 6 books, and then you thought, all right, I'll keep going.
Yeah.
But then how did you, because the first few were kind of like people you knew, right? Or like people in Montreal who you were like, yeah, I've heard you at reading, like I like what you did. Can you put it into the manuscript or something? And then what did you, when you decided to do more, like what were you looking for? Like, did you know like what your vision was for?
I don't know, like, no, I think it's just like, you know, we started getting emails from people, like after we put those original books out, I think people were like, oh, this seems cool, like maybe they'll do my book. So we were getting, you know, emails of submissions, and, you know, and some of them were really resonating, you know, and I really fell in love with, you know, writers from a distance that I didn't necessarily have like a real world relationship with. And then, you know, my mind, I don't know, and then it became less focused on Montreal, but there's always been like an important like Montreal edge. But I love like the expansion of creating like communities like elsewhere in the world, especially since we can, because we have access to technology. You know, and like I met you like because of, you know, online, and I met so many people through you because of that. And like I wanted to like honor like that as well in like my thinking about publishing.
Yeah, I mean, also I feel like you doing like Metatron like makes Montreal look really, like it makes people think like, wow, Montreal's like a cool place to like go and be a writer, or you know, everybody wants to go there and do a reading because they know that like you've set up this community this community that like, you know, that you're gonna have like a good time, and that like the standard is really high, and I don't know, that it's like taken seriously, but also it helps you to like publish people from different places, because then it spreads, right, and people know about it like in all over the place.
Exactly. Yeah, you summed it up really well. You got
Thank
it.
You. But one thing it's not about, one thing that I really like about Metatron is like, I love that you have poetry books, but you also have like short story collections and like novellas, like you kind of like, but they all feel like, it all feels really cohesive, like you know like that it's a Metatron book, like I mean obviously from the way it looks and everything, but like the stories, like the content of them feels like it's all connected, and I guess
Right.
Because
yeah, I'm so happy that it comes off that way, because it's, you know, at first we had like the same format, like sides of books, which I think was defining. But it's interesting because, you know, we always, or like, I guess I'll say I always say we when I talk about Metatron, because it's like, to me, it's like, yes, I'm like the person who's running it, but like, it's not, it's just like this, I just wanted to clear that up. I have this like weird thing where I say we when I talk about Metatron. But yeah, like all of the book covers are designed by like different artists. So it's so interesting that they all like have the same vibe. I hear that quite often. You know, I was really, really inspired by the pocketbook series from City Lights when I was starting, and the sort of like edgy voices, like actually their whole publishing ethos, but more centered around women, of just putting out these like chapbooks by emerging writers who were like, you know, very edgy and, you know, a little bit more experimental than the norm. So I would say that that was like a huge inspiration for me when I was starting.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to ask you about like your influences as a publisher, but like that makes a lot of sense. And also I agree. Like I love Lawrence Ferlinghetti and City Lights.
Yeah, Diane DePrima and like the Allen Ginsberg and just like the spirit in lots of those books, like you can really feel it. Yeah, so I was a fan of that for sure.
What made you think like I can like what made you just think, yeah, I can learn how I can make a book, like I can make many books, like how, because you probably didn't know that you had to learn that skill, and like it feels very to me, even
Yeah,
if I feel like I could edit a manuscript, but I don't feel like I could produce a book, you know, like how did
right.
you like make that leap?
Um, when I was at Concordia doing my degree in creative writing, I always wanted to do journalism, actually, is what I wanted to do. But then I didn't get into the program and I didn't try again. And instead, I took like the arts editor position at the newspaper. And when I was working at the newspaper, I developed this relationship to like Quark, which is like the same as InDesign. We would have to like lay out our own sections. And so I learned how to use that software. I guess it's called software, right? That program. And so by the time I was putting out the Metatron books, I actually knew how to lay things out. Not books, but it was like
Yeah,
transposable knowledge. And that like actually, like I think that if I didn't have that skill, I may have like not have done it. Like I don't know. I think that just like that random fact that I learned how to use the journalism at the newspaper, like really changed things, I think. Like, yeah.
yeah. Okay, cool.
And then the first books we didn't really, or I guess like I didn't really edit, like they were just put out raw. Maybe there was like a couple things here and there, but
Yeah.
editing became like more important like later on, I'd say.
And now, like, is that you that's doing that, or I know that you've worked with different people at different times, but like,
Yeah, it's different people. So there's like Light Zachary does editing for Metatron, Shazia Hafiz Ramji, sorry. And Brad Casey is on the editorial board now. And I'm trying to think, there's like various people who edit. And even last season, I worked with an editor, Tamara Faith Berger. She edited this erotica that we put out. And she, you know, I don't know her, I know her writing, but I think I'm pretty open to working with various editors at this point. Like certain books require like a different set of like relations to the content. And I think that just like working with freelance editors is probably where I want to keep on doing that, and expanding people's chances to like edit debut books too, like creating those opportunities for young editors as well.
Interesting.
Because it's hard to get an editor, like, you know, there's so many people that want to do like editorial jobs, and then there's so few opportunities to get those jobs. And so I think that's why we see people like starting their own magazines a lot and stuff, because I don't know, if you want to do something, you should just do it, you know?
Do you like, I know that obviously running your own press and learning all this stuff and like being the person in charge is very difficult for a lot of reasons. Do you think that like if you could like go back in time, and if you had the option to like run Metatron the way you want that you have and do everything that you've done, or if someone would have like given you a job at like a publishing house, like a big publishing house, and you could have like edited some books, but you know, like not maybe had the same. I mean,
Yeah.
it would be.
Which one would I choose? Would I do it again?
Yeah. Imagine if you were like, no, I would definitely take the job.
Yeah, totally. No, like I just take the job. No, I'm kidding. I mean, I like the security would have been good. But I think about like when I think about all of the poets I've met and like the travels I've been able to do to meet with others and the amazing events that we've done and all the publications people have done, like my heart literally feels like it's going to burst open. Like I'm like, you know, I really feel like I've lived a life surrounded by poets, and to me, like, yeah, like makes me emotional, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay, I'm glad that that didn't happen, that nobody offered you something like that. But no, I mean, but it's difficult, or it's kind of like something that I like think about. I was thinking about like me and you, and I don't know, Rachel as well. Like, and I don't know, um, like nobody like tried to like help us do anything, right? Like,
Yeah.
and we were just like, doesn't matter, we'll just like do it anyway.
Yeah, that's
Like,
it. Like, yeah, no one helped us. If in anything, like we had to deal with so much bullshit, like, you know, so it's like it's amazing that we're still doing what we do. Like it's so like both the work that you and Rochelle do, like I really feel like there is this like trinity between us where it's like we all are trying to do the same thing, like in spirit.
mm,
And it like, yeah, it just, yeah, there seems to be like a kinship between us that's very unique.
yeah.
And like
I
just seeing you like always like push through and like redefine like what shabby is, and you know, and like also seeing you like take time away from it for a bit, like it's just like I think knowing that you're out there in the world like makes me feel stronger.
Yeah, you too.
And Rochelle too.
Yeah, imagine if we like didn't even like, because the thing is as well that like I sometimes like think for like a second, I'm like, oh, like these people are doing sort of similar things as me, like maybe we should do something together. And then it's like, no, we shouldn't do things together because we all have our own like ideas and visions, and that's why we're doing them. But like the fact that we're like have each other like in the distance, and that like we know that like we can collaborate whenever we want, and like we have like we've done loads of events and stuff together, right? And like we've always help each other and like support the different projects that we do and stuff. But yeah, like
Mhm.
I I don't yeah, I don't think that we like it's good that we all have slightly different paths, but they like intersect in these ways.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and I feel the same. I'm just like so glad that you're doing it, and that you're like I just feel like I know that you're gonna keep doing it like in some way. Like um I don't know what, like, do you have like ideas about what you will do going forward, like after, if things start sort of, you know,
Hmm.
don't go back to normal, but you know.
Yeah. um I guess we'll see. Like everything is still uncertain. I am like really excited about like video poems right now, and trying to get funding so to like give people money so that they can create video poems.
Mhm.
And like sound, I feel like because we've had to like live our lives online, I have been thinking about these other formats for poetry. So I'm really interested in exploring those, but also um, I've become quite close with these art book publishers in Montreal called Antiism Book Art. And
Mm.
they make like incredible limited edition hardcover like art books. and they're just like super open and like really into Metatron and are constantly trying to like work together and do interesting things. And I think the next step, like I really want to learn more about like bookmaking. So I think like hanging out in their studios more when that becomes viable, and learning about like the physicality of books is very like exciting to me right now. So maybe some like beautiful special edition. Like I've always wanted to do like an anthology of like getting stuff from like Omega and Alpha and like sections from the books and like creating this like beautiful like Metatron anthology.
Wow.
So maybe that.
That would be really cool.
And then
Wow.
continuing to do like maybe 4 publications a year or so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Nice. Yeah,
I mean, there's
great.
nothing on the radar. Like, I mean, there's a couple books that I think we'll be doing later this year, but it's just, life has been so complicated. I haven't really been able to like put a whole lot of energy into like Metatron's publications coming up. I don't know, you know, like when life just takes over and it's just, yeah, it's just been difficult to like find the time and energy to like do that kind of dreaming and to like spend time with like the manuscripts like that we're considering. Like I just I'm like you know, I'm a human being, you know, I'm an editor, but like sometimes it's hard to create the space to do all the things that you need to do, you know. So I just like to go with the flow and be like kind to myself with what I'm capable of doing.
Also, like everybody who's had a book out during the last year is just like, oh, it's horrible.
Yeah.
So I feel like there's not that much like motivation to publish stuff.
Yeah.
I don't think it can like have the like celebration that it would deserve. And
yeah,
I don't know.
it was
I feel
so
like
hard putting out the books like last fall, like just, you know, it never felt real. Like we didn't get to do a book launch in person, and like I don't know, it made me feel bad that like you know, I think I kind of like it felt like my fault, but it wasn't my fault. It was, you know, the pandemic. But like I think I like internalized that, and like it just was kind of like another painful experience of publications, you know, like publishing things is kind of back to what we were talking about with ambient technology. Like publishing isn't always super happy, you know, depending on where you're at or what the content's about. And
well, it looked like, because a lot of people only see like at the book launch or whatever, or they like see the finished product, but it's just so important to you as the publisher, but also like to the writer. You have to get it right for them, right? Because it's a really big deal, especially because you're usually working with young and like emerging writers with their first books. Like have you always done, have you been everybody's first book that you've done?
Yeah, we did. It has been. We did 2 books by Sarah Sutherland. But other than that, they've all been debuts. So it's, you know, it's very trying to create like momentum in media around someone that no one knows, or like who's just getting started, is difficult. And it's why like places like you know, Shabby and Peach and all of these sort of more, it's like why these places are so important is because they create like visibility around these authors that totally deserve to be super visible. Their work is incredible. So yeah.
But you've done that too. Like you've published all these books, but you've also published like hundreds of people online.
Yeah.
On the blog and also on Instagram.
Yeah. and featured like, yeah, I think like 300 writers at reading series.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's been
Really? Wow.
incredible. I don't know, like I never like imagined myself doing this with my life, but this is just like where I've gone, and like I'm happy, and I love the work that I do, you know, and I feel very grateful to be able to say that.
Yeah. What did you think your life was going to be like? Like when you were like a teenager, what did you think like you were going to do?
Oh man, I don't know. I think I always knew that I wanted to like write. I think I always was like, I'm gonna be a writer or like a journalist, or
Mm.
I always like knew that I wanted to do something really special in the world. I don't know. I was like, not that I'm not to say that like what I do is like incredibly special, like, or I guess it is special, but I wanted to do something good for the world.
Yeah.
And like I didn't know what that was. And I'm not saying Metatron's perfect, but I think it has I don't know, it's had like an impact on a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's cool.
It's really cool. I mean, obviously it has a really big impact on the people you publish, but also like just on the people who read the books. It is
Mhm.
like it's hard to find stuff like that. And I feel like the way that you do it, like the way that everything looks and like I don't know, just the quality is so high. You don't think like I don't know, you don't get the impression that like, oh, this is uh like one person like doing this like and not
Right.
and like figuring out along the way. You like it they I don't know, like I can imagine like if I came to it in a bookstore, I'd just be like, wow, like what is this? And
Yeah.
um but also I don't know, like yeah, just so many great books. Some of my personal favorites.
Yeah, what
Sugar
are yours?
Sugar Blood by Liz Bowen, Our Lady of Perpetual Realness by Kaysen Sharp, um, Indoor Girl by Frankie Barnett, Pony Castle, Sophia Benzer.
Wow,
I,
yes.
I mean, I have like a lot, but um, but yeah, just like so many. I guess I like the stories. I can confess.
Right. Yeah, yeah, for sure.
But no, it's just yeah. This isn't a question. I'm just like now like telling you how much I
Yeah.
like it.
Well, I can't I was gonna be like, my favorites are, but no, I love them all. Um, one of the
um
books we just published is nominated for a Lambda for Best Erotica.
wow.
Yeah, I'm super excited about that. I think the awards are like in a month, and yeah,
Wow. Well, I hope
yeah.
you
So
win.
I should send you a copy of The Nerves, or like all of the new books, maybe. Send me your address after this.
Okay. Yeah, but I mean I want to read them. But yeah, I guess I mean there's just so many things to talk about. Like I want to talk about publishing and like what I don't know, like and why you do that and everything. But I also think that it's important to talk about your writing because I I don't know, like I feel like it's easy to I don't know, do you feel like it's hard for your writing or and the same for me, like it's hard for our writing couldn't be as important as the things that we do for other people, I think, right? Like do you like it just that would be ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like um but it's also like a vital part of who you are and
Yeah. I think that like I created Metatron to like create a space for myself in the world.
right.
And then I realized that I don't know, it was like so much bigger than just me that needed that space. And yeah, and I think my publishing work definitely gets like a lot more like attention, and I get, you know, and it's fantastic, and like I'm so happy about that. Yeah, it's always really nice to be able to talk about the writing and like my own relationship to it. And like, yeah, and just, yeah, like, have you been, I'm curious, like, about your relationship to writing recently. Have you been like finding time or energy to do it, or how has that process been for you?
Yeah, I have. Like, I've been working on like a couple of different things. I was like, I had started writing like something that like felt kind of like a book project like before the pandemic, like for the like a few months before that I was like doing something, and then once it happened I just kind of like abandoned that and started doing the quarantine because
Mm-hmm.
that felt like more vital, and whatever I had like been doing was just like, who cares? Or
Mm-hmm.
it just like wasn't relevant. Like it would be impossible. It was impossible to just like, I don't know,
Yeah.
continue with that. Um, and then I started doing the quarantine, and that was like really great because it was very like time consuming, and it meant that I had to like communicate with loads and loads of people and like be like in like, I felt like, oh, I can put myself in this role as like the person who's editing a thing, and then I like it just made me feel better. Like I can like,
Mm-hmm.
if
Mm-hmm.
I can record this and I can like collaborate with people, then I'll feel better. And then I sort of
Mm-hmm.
I didn't like write anything apart from, you know, like maybe like I wrote like little parts for that or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
but nothing that was like, you know, like my work or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then like more like in the last like few months, or like, I don't know, after the like the autumn or something, I started writing some new things, but kind of like using the same voice as like what I'd been like using, like the same sort of style and the same voice as what I was doing before, but like just different. And
Mm-hmm.
so I don't know if the other thing would ever, I don't know, I don't know if it will ever be revived, maybe. But yeah, I also like, I'm doing a bunch of different things, but I don't have like plans for it. I kind of
Yeah.
like I don't have like, I don't know. I'm,
Yeah, it's hard to have like a plan for a writing project. It's like,
mm,
I feel like the publishing industry, like at one point seemed like ripe with potential, and it was a place that I wanted to like aspire to be. But I think that like with my writing now, like I just want to like do it, and if it like finds a way of connecting with people, then like that's great. Um, but yeah, I don't have any like huge dreams of like getting like a book deal with a big publisher. Like, you know, like I don't feel like I have like unrealistic expectations of what my writing could do. Yeah, but there's like one exciting thing is that there's like a Spanish, it's been in the works forever, but I finally got an email a couple days ago about a like Spanish translation of my poetry being published in Argentina.
wow.
So that's particularly exciting for me because of my relationship to Spanish. And yeah, like it's so beautiful. Like I've been like really into translations recently, actually, and like the power of them, being able to like connect with different cultures through the power of translation. And yeah, like some of my favorite books like I've read in the last few years have been translations. And I don't know, I guess I just feel um excited to do that. And I'm also like interested in like, could I like, I want to do translations with Metatron, like that'd be really cool.
Yeah.
But I think it like is more costly, like, you know, like you have to like pay a translator, like
Yeah.
and like, you know, foreign rights fees and all that, so we'll see.
Right. Yeah, it's complicated. And but I guess because you live in Montreal, there's a lot of translation going on, right? There's a lot of
For sure.
a few of the books, a couple of the books that you've published have got French versions now, right?
Yeah, like three of them now, like Marcela Huerta's book Tropico is coming out in French like next month. I guess it's been mostly fiction. It's so none of the poetry has been translated, but the fiction books have been picked up.
Nice. Okay.
Natalia Heroes Hum and
Oh, I love that one. I forgot. That's another one of my favorites.
yeah. And then an Indoor Kind of Girl by Frankie Barnett also was picked up in French. Yeah, it's cool. Like, I guess like you live in a French speaking city and like I do too, you know, people who don't know, like Montreal is technically bilingual, but it's, you know, majority French. And there's a lot of cool stuff going on, you know, like there's amazing writers working in French that I would love to translate. And yeah, and like I do feel like they're like English community and the French community are so like operating like two different worlds, but there are people who like are making the effort to try and like merge and create like conversations between the two. And yeah, like that kind of work is like super amazing.
I was kind of thinking about this before we started the conversation, but I didn't know how to bring it in. But like, do you think it affects you and like your relationship with writing? And like you talked about how like you like your mom is from Mexico, but like you didn't grow up speaking Spanish, and so there's that. But then also the fact that you like live in Montreal, where like I feel like in Montreal, like you don't really know, like going into like a random situation, you don't know if it's going to be in French or English, and like, or it like is in French for a few sentences and it changes, or like, you know, and then someone comes and it changes again. Like it's like, and that's normal when you're there, but like it's not how things work in most
totally. Yeah, it's I always think about this, about like my relationship to Spanish, and like when we would go visit my family, how I wouldn't totally understand them or be able to talk with them. And you know, my comprehension of French is like good, but it's not perfect. And like I think like I've done lots of thinking about this, and I'm like, I think for me, living in a city where I don't speak the dominant language has been like, it provides a lot of psychic space that I find really important to poetry and to writing. There's something about like when I'm in other cities where it's just English, like the abrasiveness of understanding gets really like overwhelming or something. It's like I don't want to like understand everything that's going on around me.
Oh yeah.
So I describe it as like this like certain level of like psychic space that I get because I have to like work hard to understand like the stuff I'm hearing around me. And it's a weird thing.
Yeah.
But it's cool. I love the culture in this city. Like it just, and I love all the different languages that I hear around me in the city. I'm sure it's the same for you. And you're in Paris right now, yeah?
I'd say at the moment I'm in like a small place in Burgundy, like a couple of hours away. But yeah, like often I'm in Paris. But yeah, I feel like, and then like when I lived in Berlin, like I'm much better with French, but like when I lived in Berlin, like my German is like very basic, and like I could basically just like switch like if people are talking around me, like I'm not listening.
Yeah.
Like I don't really like, you know, like
that's
if I needed to communicate with someone, like I would have to make it work, but like otherwise I was just in my own world. And then like anytime I would like go to like America or England, like, and just like being around everybody speaking English, it's like, oh, everyone's so annoying.
It's so it's intense. Like
yeah.
It's so interesting. Like for people who don't understand or like live in a like situation like maybe like we do, it's like it's so interesting that this is like, I don't know. But like with that said, like when I travel to like let's say Toronto, I'm like, oh my God, like I can like I feel completely like understood and that there's like nothing in my way. Whereas like, you know, there is this psychic space, but like I also feel this sense of like isolation or like disconnection from the city around me too. So it's like you know, a double-edged sword, if that's the right expression. It's like on one hand you get like this sort of space, and on the other hand you get this like sense of isolation. So
yeah
I
feel like in France it's like, for me, like when I'm just like going about like doing daily things, like I'm just kind of like thinking like I need to get through this, like I need to like communicate like the bare minimum, and like they'll make a joke and I'll laugh, and like, but I won't do that, like, because I don't like
Right.
feel confident enough or something. And then if I like go
Hmm.
to, not that I've been to anywhere else for ages, but like then in the past when I would like go like back to England or something, I would like go in like a store and I just feel like, oh my God, like
Totally.
I can like make a joke, I can like react,
Yeah, I
and
know, right?
or like
I totally know what you're talking about.
it's so weird. But I don't I but there's like a level of like, even if you understand the language, and like there's just always going to be stuff that like you can't,
Yeah.
if you're not native to it, like I don't know. um
Yeah, like
but
we're just little aliens here to like visit for a bit and like take in as much information as possible. That's how
are
I
you
feel.
and then you went to Argentina, right, once to do readings or something, to do something?
Yeah, I got to go there to do take part in their International Poetry Festival in Rosario. And that was so amazing. Like yeah, I don't know. I guess it's interesting because I was reading you know Cecilia Pavon, right?
No.
Oh my God, you need to read her poetry. She's a Argentinian poet, and you will love her poetry. It's so amazing. But I was reading, Jay Ritchie had turned me on to her, and he was like, you should read this book. You know, she's Argentinian. And so I was reading one of her translated books, A Hotel with No Name, when I was there, and I was really in love with the writing. And then I randomly ended up meeting her and her friend after my first reading in
Oh wow.
Argentina. And I didn't even know it was her. And they were just like so nice and friendly, and were really interested in like potentially like translating something. And then someone came up to me after, and she was like, that's Cecilia Pavon and like her friend. And I was just like, oh my God. So it was really cool. I'm really grateful for the connections that I made when I was there. And also like, you know, their poetry community is so different than what I'm like, seeing how things are different in different parts of the world. Really strong poetry culture in Argentina. It was very, very inspiring to be there. They
Yeah.
treat poets with like genuine like love and respect.
Yeah, I feel like, I mean, I don't know that, like I can't really speak about like the whole world, but like I felt the same like when I've been in Spain, and like knowing a few Spanish poets and being friends with them, like the way that they talk about their work and the way that other people regard their work, like it's feels like it's very important
Yeah,
life, whereas I don't think it's really like that.
totally. And yeah, and it's the same with like my partner right now is Persian from Iran, and Persian culture is like everything is about poetry. Like every single like special occasion, it's like poetry is like it's just such a sacred part of their culture. And that's just not what I like was raised like understanding with like Anglo writing. And you know, so it's been deeply moving to be able to have access to the way other cultures like appreciate and relate to poetry in a way that isn't that's different than how my experience.
Yeah. Yeah, I once went to like got invited to like a poetry festival in Romania, and it was amazing. And all the
I
people who
remember seeing
came,
photos of that.
everyone who like came to the reading was like 15 or 16. It was like,
Oh
what?
my
Like,
God.
why? Like, it was like teenagers were like into poetry, and it was
Yeah,
like, wow, like
yeah. The
great.
world's changing. Yeah, that's so
Yeah.
exciting.
And
Zona
then
Noah, right?
yeah, they're really
Yeah,
cool.
they're
Oh,
yeah,
and
so
they
cool.
translated some work by you, right? I think
Yeah,
we were both in the same anthology.
yeah,
Um,
so
yeah,
cool.
they're great. Um, okay, well, I feel like this is just making me like want to be able to go places again.
I know, it's also making me wish that like you were here and you were like sleeping over and we could like continue talking forever and like have a little wine together. And like,
Oh, I
oh,
know.
it's been so nice to talk. But yeah, I also, my bladder is full and I need to go to the bathroom.
Okay. Do you want me to, I'll pause the recording and then you can come back or do you want
And
to?
yeah, let's pause it. We can like edit this out. I'm gonna go to the
Yeah,
bathroom
yeah. All
and
right,
then
cool.
we'll come back and I'll just do the reading and we can like finish up.
Yeah. All right, cool.
Okay.
Right. Would you like to read something? Is it from Ambient Technology?
Yeah, I've changed my mind. I was gonna read from Boca, but I'm feeling shy about those. They will be coming soon. But I'm gonna read a poem that I wrote in Argentina, actually, since we were just talking about that. There's a section in Ambient Technology called Agave Girl, and it's it's the section where I go to Mexico, and it's a very healing part of my journey. And I also worked in a poem that was written in Argentina when I was there for the festival. So I'm going to read that piece, and then I think that will be all for today. So there's no title. None of the poems have titles in this book. And my mom, one other important thing is that my mom came with me to Argentina, which was very special for both of us. So I mentioned her and she was there. Exhausted by the obelisk. All the languages that are not mine, all the impressions others have of me are not mine. A feeling is just a feeling. Tell the poets to settle down. A big city is a big city. I put an amethyst crystal in my mouth, mistaking it for a mini Oreo. Crying in my mother's arms and Palermo. Tears made of leather. Tears the same as everyone, but they are mine. Sometimes I do not belong in space with time. If you don't have power, you are powerless, a woman says to me. She is a stranger, but she feels like my mother. I buy onyx, rhodochrosite, and Palo Santo from her. I just want to think clearly, love simply. I am nostalgic for the future. I let a mosquito kiss my cheek. And then this would be the next piece, and this is the last piece in Agave Girl. She pronounces her engagement, peels off her plaid shirt, reveals black flowers climbing her arms. The one, la una, she says. We need to give up on knowing someone entirely. Doesn't really matter. I'm just shameful in a white dress in a dirty city, lacking faith. Hate is about abstractions. I hold on to my echo chamber, the privilege of passports. Everything outside of me hurts, but I am kissing you from far away. This language we speak, there's so much we say that we don't. Yeah, that's a good move. I think I like reading and then doing this to like end your reading.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening.
Yeah, thank you so much for talking to me and for sharing so much of your experience, and thank you for reading and for this profound experience of poetry.
Aww. Thank you, Lucy. I love you so much.
Oh, you too.